Yeah, so welcome everybody to a special relative strength webinar brought to you by Deepvue. We'll be covering, a little bit about the concept, what is relative strength, how can you most make use of it, and then we'll dive into how you can apply it in Deepvue and find stocks that are showing relative strength faster. We'll cover some indicators, some data points, get into some screening as well that will really help you find those leaders that are standing out and showing relative strength. So with that, just a few quick things. This is being recorded and we'll send this out to the full email list. If you have any general comments, drop them in the chat. Any questions that you'd like to see us answer, please leave them in the Q&A, and we want as much participation as possible. So if you have any questions, any ideas, we'd love to hear it. So don't be shy. Definitely go ahead and drop it in the chat or the Q&A. And with that, Rye, I'll hand it over to you, and let's go ahead and dive in.
Yeah, so today's agenda is going to be, we're going to cover the basics of relative strength just to be on the same page. The definition, a few different ways you can view relative strength in the markets, and how we've implemented it in Deepvue, and then we'll get into scans, scores, the details of the scans and the scores that we've implemented, some of the improvements that are coming up in the short term, and then we'll open it up for questions, Q&As. Ideas, I think, are most important. So if you have things you want to see in the platform that we should be implementing, or you think we haven't implemented yet, please put them in the chat or the Q&A as we go through this. So to start with, Richard, you want to kind of take it away with what is relative strength?
Yeah, so the concept of relative strength, was kind of developed and systematized by William O'Neill. And basically, it's a framework that looks for stocks that are the potential leaders in the market because they're showing something special. And on a relative basis, typically relative to the S&P 500 as a benchmark, or just, looking at all the stocks in the market, stocks that are showing relative strength are outperforming, on a price basis. And we'll really focus in today on, during a correction, which, this is very timely, during a correction or bear market, relative strength really stands out. And we're looking for the stocks that, because, institutions and large funds see something in the stock, they've created their spreadsheets, they have the future earnings growth, the estimates, all of that. They believe in the company. They have decided to accumulate stock during this corrective period. And these are the forces that actually move the market and create the supply and dynamics that, impact price action. So even while we're in a corrective phase in the market, or in a bear market, or just correcting, over the course of a week, a normal pullback, these institutions will be accumulating shares because they're trying to build big positions over time. And we see this accumulation in the charts through signs of relative strength, which we'll go through, many of them today. So as we see here, it separates the leading stocks from the laggards. We've got the relative strength line indicator in Deepvue that allows you to visualize it. We've got many different data points in Deepvue as well to help you screen for it and analyze it, right next to your charts, whether it's in the data columns or in the data panel. And you can see here, this is what I've already said, stocks that are holding up, the best relative to the rest of the market are the ones that institutions are not willing to sell, or they're even using this pullback to accumulate stocks. So when markets go down and enter corrective periods, these institutions will be looking for the names they'd like to own and build positions in anticipation of the new uptrend. And that accumulation shows up on the charts, whether it's price signals, volume signatures. We'll cover a bunch of them today.
Awesome. So there are different types of relative strength in the market, and different ways that you could view it. One being, you can have scans, for example, a simple scan when the market is down, and you scan for inside days. For example, the S&P undercuts the low of the prior 3 days, right? Or the Qs cut the lows of the prior 3 days, and you could run an inside day scan just to see, on a relative basis, the price action on the S&P and the Qs, and the price action on the stocks that didn't really follow the S&P and the Qs, that results in relative strength. That's one way to do it, right? And the other way of it is you can relatively compare performance of a stock to its peers, or a stock to its group, or a stock to every other stock in the database. So there are different ways to kind of go about it and to find stocks that have exhibited relative strength or ones that maybe and potentially are being accumulated during a corrective phase or a pullback in the markets, or when the market's resting for a period of time. The four types that we've implemented so far in Deepvue, the first one being the RS new high. So if the RS line is making a new high on a 1, 3, 6, and 12-month basis, you could build a scan and search for those. And that's usually something that David Ryan, Mike Webster, and folks that, institutionally manage money talk about on a regular basis. Is they follow the relative strength line. It's a good way to scan the markets to find the strongest stocks and potential candidates that might turn into market leaders. The second is relative strength new high before price. So this is something that Ross Haber at Traderline, Ross, you guys know him, is big on. So relative strength new highs, new high before price makes a new high. For example, if we have a stock that trades at 50 1 month ago and is now trading at, let's say, 45, and if the relative strength on, let's say, on a 1 month basis is making a new high while the price is now moved from 50 to 45, it tells you that relatively, when you're comparing that particular stock to the market, that stock is acting a lot stronger than the market is acting. So that's another way, and one of my favorite ways to scan the market is relative strength new high before price is making a. You can anticipate that the stock is going to catch up to as soon as the market starts to turn up the right side, or whatever situation the market might be in.
And can I
The
jump in
third,
to
yeah,
add there? Yeah,
yeah.
and the relative strength line, this can happen, and the relative strength line can increase even when the stock is still pulling back, even when it's still correcting. And we saw a lot of this in the 2020 March correction. Stocks, the relative strength line was an uptrend, even when the stock and the market was in a downtrend, because on a relative basis, the stock is holding up a lot better than the general index. So that trend of the relative strength line and looking for divergences where the stock is still pulling back, the market is still pulling back, and the relative strength line is in an uptrend, that's something that you want to key in on. And on the flip side, if the market is in an uptrend, the stock may even be increasing, but the relative strength line starts to peter out, flatten out, and even start a downtrend, that's telling you again that that's a sign of weakness, that even though the stock is moving higher, there's not quite that same energy and flow to it. So, and the relative strength new high before price, if you see a stock that breaks, the RS line makes a new high before price, and we're just coming out of a market correction, that should be, top of your list to consider as a potential new buy, as a potential new leader. So I think that's, Ross, really emphasized this, and that's something that we've talked to him a lot. I've talked to him a lot about. But if you're not familiar with this concept, and we'll get into it more in Naturally Deepvue, definitely check it out and add it to your list of things to learn more about.
Yeah. So the third type is relative strength phase. This is something that Mike Webster talks about, where you put a moving average on your relative strength line. And when the relative strength line is above your 21-day average, could be SMA or EMA, depending on your preference, the stock will then be in a relative strength phase, is what we call it, right? So that's another way to say, show me all stocks that are in a relative strength phase. Or when you're scanning through and you want to visualize the relative strength line, you're looking at stocks in the RS phase. That means that on a net 21-day basis, the stock is outperforming the markets, and that's also good information as well. Within Deepvue, when we get to the indicators and we showcase this, you could change that 21 to 10 if you're trading smaller time frames, or you could change that 21 to 50 depending entirely on your personal preference. The last one is relative strength days, and we'll get into the depths of this, which I think is relatively key and something that I've studied in depth over many different corrections. We have an example at the end of these slides as well, is relative strength days. So relative strength days are defined as any day in the market that a stock is outperforming the index or the benchmark that you set for it. So that could be, for example, recent stocks like BRT or CELH that have been, as the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ are starting to break their 50-day SMAs, those stocks on a day-by-day basis are accumulating relative strength days. And that's the fourth way. It's not talked about much, but I think it's another way to kind of quantify visualize, and you could see it when you do historical studies that eventual market leaders that come out of corrections tend to exhibit relative strength about 61 to 62% of the time. So that's a key metric that you could track. So for example, if the S&P goes into a 20-day correction, right, you could go and show me stocks with the highest amount of relative strength days over the last 20 days. And that could be key information for you to build lists or potential candidates for true market, leaders or stocks that might lead the next uptrend. So there are two ways that we've implemented kind of relative strength, the concept of it that we talked about, or the four different ways that we view relative strength in the market in Deepvue. So first is scans. You can scan for these, and there are presets available under the technical folder, and there are scans that we will get to that we've built for, for example, something that Oliver Kell scans for in the market when we did the masterclass with him, or a scan that Mike Webster gave us for the, down days in the market, what to scan for. So there are those type of scans, but there are also these pure, RS new high, RS new high before price, RS phase, which is still in progress, which will be implemented, and then RS days, which is already implemented in Deepvue. And the other way is relative performance. You could think of it. So we have RS scores on 1, 3, 6, and 12-month durations. We have absolute scores, absolute strength scores, which I'll get to in the next slide. And then we have RS days data points that you could say, show me, the RS count for all the stocks on my watch list. You could add it as a column, or you could just say, show me stocks that have exhibited 60% relative strength over the last month. And you could scan for that in Deepvue as well today. So I'm going to get straight into the scores, and then we'll go to the platform because I know a lot of you want to see it in action. So the first one is absolute strength score. So this one is a little bit different than your regular, RS score that you will see on many other platforms. This particular score is purely based on price performance. So we have this on a 1, 3, 6, and 12-month duration. And what it does is it says, it compares the performance of a stock based, purely based on price performance and how it's going in the markets versus its peers. So this is a good way. I feel it's a good way. You could run it on 1 month and you could sort it by it, and you'll know what the market. You could spot rotation in the markets. If money is flowing from financials, or if money is flowing to financials growth. From growth to financials and oilers, you'll see this right in the AS score, where you'll see all the oil stocks kind of be bumped up on a 1 month basis, and everything else kind of, take a backseat in terms of the ranking itself. Anything else, Richard, for this?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in and just say this is also really helpful in finding the strongest stocks within an industry group. So in Deepvue, you could do your first sort by the industry group, your second sort by, I like to use AS score 1 month. So what's the strongest stocks, over the basis of 1 month over that period. And then as you go through each industry group, it automatically ranks it, because that's the second sort, by this score. So if you're looking at semiconductors and you're thinking to yourself, how do I find the strongest stock in this leading group? If you sort by the group, then by this, you can basically see this metric, and it breaks it down nice and easy for you. So this is really helpful. And I think, I saw a question about this. What's the key difference between this and the RS score, which we also have? The difference is that there's no weighting involved. It's just purely based on the raw price performance. So I just want to emphasize that, versus the RS score weights, the most recent periods higher. So you can use each. I incorporate both into my screens. I kind of use them similarly, but a little bit differently. But I think both of them are really powerful data points that you can quickly find the strongest stocks in the market using.
And the next one is RS. So this one, most people are most familiar with. What this does is it kind of blends the performance. So if you're looking at the 3-month RS score on a stock, what it's doing is it's taking the 1 month performance and the 3 month, and it's doing a blend of those to give you a weighted score, right? And the 12-month then takes the 1, 3, and 6. That emphasizes the recent performance a little bit more, and the 12-month performance a little bit less. And then it compares that to all the stocks in the database. So This is another way, or you could say the more traditional way. In some instances, if a stock is to perform and move 300 to 500%, you'll see certain instances where it still remains the strongest stock in the market, even though it's fallen off a cliff. That's kind of the traditional way, or another way to look at relative strength, which is why we've incorporated kind of both. You could see the immediate 1, 3, 6 month horizon, which is a non-weighted score, and you will know exactly what's going on in the market in terms of rotation and where their strength is on a 1, 3, 6, and 12 month basis. Or folks that are very accustomed to looking at the 12 month can still use that within the platform. So the last slide that I have is basically RS days. I quickly want to discuss how we kind of do it in Deepvue and how you can scan for it. So this is an example of Zoom back in the 2020 correction. So when the correction started, which is this red line, and then the green line is when the correction ended, there were 19 relative strength days that Zoom exhibited from the start of the correction to the end, the day that we had follow-through days, and that was 61% of the time during a 31-day correction in the markets. So this is something that we've incorporated into Deepvue and the platform itself and made it scannable so that you could look at, relative strength on a 20-day basis, a 10-day basis, 5-day basis, to find whatever time horizon, you're looking for in terms of quantifying the number of days the stock has exhibited relative strength. And there are many, many examples. You could take, any correction in the market, and you could say that, okay, after this correction, these were the market leaders. You could see that the market leaders when the market turns and comes out of a correction, all of them exhibited some form of relative strength, and relative strength days are a way to quantify that strength. And on average, you'll see over 60 to 62% of the leaders that come out of a correction, they seem to exhibit RS 60 to 62% of the time. So I think with that, Richard, we'll go straight into the platform.
Sounds good.
And cover. Let's start with the indicator.
Yep.
And cover that in depth.
Yeah, sure thing. So first, how is this indicator calculated? Because I'm sure some people are curious about that. Could you expand it just a little bit, drag it down just a little bit?
Yes.
Yep. So yeah, Rye was showing how to add it to your chart. So if you go up to the indicators pane, type in DV, and then click relative strength line, it will bring it up. And then you can either adjust it to its own scale or add it to a new pane above, as we have right here. You can drag it up and down. You can, auto fit it, basically set it up to suit your preferences. We've got tutorials on that, which you should definitely check out. But looking at this indicator, let's break down, each component. So first, the line that's both blue and pink, depending on if you're above and below the moving average, that is the relative strength line. And that is calculated by dividing the price of the stock by the thing you're comparing it to. So in this case, the S&P 500. And you can go ahead and click the gear icon there, right? If you could do that. And you can see it's calculated versus the SPY, the ETF. You can click that and switch it to the the NASDAQ if you prefer, another stock if you prefer. But the SPY is a good common reference point. But exiting that out before we go into the settings, just talking generally about the indicator. When it's above the line, we have it highlighted in blue, so it's in an uptrend. When it's below the line, we have the area shaded in pink, which highlights when it's in downtrend. And we've also got these crossover indicators, which are those blue triangles, right? If you could point those out, that signifies when we cross above or below basically the moving average there. So once again, when this line is an uptrend, the stock net is outperforming the market. When it's above that moving average, we're in an RS phase, especially when the market is pulling in. And when we're below this line, that means the outperformance has ended, and the stock is more under pressure and isn't quite performing as well. So before I get into the circles, right, anything generally about the indicator that you'd add here?
No, I think we could get into kind of the settings of it and how
Sure.
folks can customize it.
Sure. So yeah, in order to edit it, you want to click that gear icon. This brings up the pop-up. We've got 3 tabs: input, style, and visibility. First, covering inputs. As we mentioned, you can basically go ahead and click that and change whatever reference symbol you'd like to add, whether it's the QQQ ETF, that switches things up. But we like the SPY just because it's a common one right there. You can change the plot type from line to candlestick. So this provides, even more granularity that some people might really find useful, especially when trying to count RS days. That's a pretty useful application for this. But if you'd like to keep it more, you're going through a lot of charts, you want to see a quick visual indication, you can switch that back to the line. Vertical offset just changes how it appears within that pane if you want to space it out a little bit more. Moving down, you can see the moving average length right now is 21 days. We've got it set to an EMA. You can switch that to an SMA. So if you're a longer term position trader, you might want to switch this to the 50 SMA. Whatever you prefer, you can go ahead and do that really easily. Moving down, we've got a few checkboxes, which are some additional options.
Richard, before
go
we
ahead.
go on to those, you can also switch it to any input that you feel is best. Folks, you don't have to use 21 day if you don't view the markets that way. And if you have a longer term horizon, if you switch this to 50, you could see that app's relative strength phase, right? Relative to the market started all the way here, and it's not exhibited anything, any weakness since that. And you could see that that's part of this trend over here, right?
Yeah.
So it all depends on your personal preference and style. Some folks might want to go with 10, and that shows you, on
Quick
a 10-day
moves.
basis, are we in a strength phase, a positive phase or a negative phase? So it's entirely dependent on you.
Yep, good point. Down there where we've got some checkboxes, you can turn on or off any of these options. The green dot that may show up on your plot signifies the relative strength line new high. If you see a pink dot, that's a relative strength line new high before price, as you can see right here. And you can also hide the moving average if you'd like, or also hide the crossover indicator. So I saw a comment earlier that somebody doesn't like to trade using the circles; they find them distracting. Tailor this to suit your process. If you don't want to use the circles, hide them on your charts. The goal is to have the perfect dashboard to suit your trading style and eliminate all the other noise. So and we kind of have given, we've thought about that. I might use something that Rye doesn't, he might use something that I don't. You've got full customizability here with the indicator to tailor it to your process. So that's pretty much it. Style, you can just kind of change the colors and everything if you click that tab over there, Rye. Yep, so you can change all these colors. You might want, depending on the day, if it's an up day or down day in RS, you can change those colors. Again, you can fully customize this. I won't walk through everything, but definitely tailor it, make your own. And visibility, you can have it show up on different time frames. So anything with the setup here that you think we should re-emphasize, Rye or Tyler, if there's anything we missed?
No, I think this is always we're always trying to improve this, and some things that we can add is if a quick visual, if it's in a positive phase or a negative phase, the number of RS days, we can maybe add that where it could do a count for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And give you a percentage at the same time. So those are some things that we will continuously try to incorporate into this indicator so that you're getting more information as to what we spoke about, different ways to view relative strength in the market. And it would be really nice, I think, to have those two right here as you flip charts.
Yeah, and maybe the RS score there as well. That might be
Exactly.
a good option. Yeah, so we'll always be iterating here, and if you have any ideas, this is the perfect time to put them in the chat. What would be your dream relative strength line? What would it look like? What features could we add to make this even better? Anything you want to suggest, we want to hear it. So with that, I think we can move on to the data columns, I think is the next step.
Yeah, so there's a question, can you edit the triangles either by color or orientation to distinguish between positive and negative crossovers? Yeah, I think, we can implement that. At the moment, you could change these to whatever you really want. So you can have these be, some green dots at the bottom, or you could say below the bar, or at the top of it, or at the bottom, or absolutely, there are different settings that you could go through here. but I think it's a good idea to give users the flexibility to only plot crossovers to the up or the downside, which we'll definitely get into subsequent updates.
Cool. So yeah, let's dive into the data columns now.
Yeah, so data columns with anything that when it comes to Deepvue, anything that's incorporated or what we talked about in the slide deck can be a column. So if we were to cover some of these stocks, for example, APP on an absolute basis when compared, just non-weighted in the market, it is one of the strongest stocks in the market. And as we go through this list, you'll kind of see stocks that have exhibited, as the S&P or the Qs are coming through their 50, you'll see that on a 1 month basis, these are your strongest stocks in the market. So that's really, one easy way you could just go build a screen and say, show me absolute strength greater than 90. And that will show you the top 10% of the stocks that are outperforming, every other stock in the market from a price performance basis that is non-weighted. So that's kind of, the advantage of absolute strength. And you have that on a 1, 3, 6, and 12-month basis. We update them throughout the day so that, you receive the most relevant information for these. And something that Richard talked about was the fact that you can incorporate this when you're sorting by industries and then sort by the AS score to give you the strongest stocks in that particular industry group. So that's another advantage for another way to be using absolute strength as well. So that's absolute strength in terms of how it's implemented into Deepvue. The next we have the traditional RS scores, which I've already plotted here. These are more weighted over a span of 1, 3, 6, and 12 month. Our weight, so to address the question, the RS is calculated differently than Market Smith, and how so? Our blend of how we feel recent action versus action 12 months ago should be calculated is a little bit, it will never be the same and is a little bit different. And it's our interpretation of it, of how we feel, what's more important in the market. So even though the rating itself or the score itself might not vary that much from Market Smith, but when you start using it and you get into the granularities of it, you'll see some subtle differences, which we feel, recent performance matters a little bit more. And RS 12 months shouldn't be at 99 when the stock goes down 50% from its highs. So those are some of the subtle differences that we have from Market Smith. Yeah, there's a question from Chris to plot the RS score on the chart similar to Market Smith. That's one of the updates we will make over the next 3 to 4 weeks. We will get that in where you'll see the RS score right here, and you'll be able to choose which one you want to see. You want to see the 1 month, 3 month, 6 month, or 12 month. That's entirely up to you. Or you want to see all 4. That's also entirely up to you. We'll get that into the indicator as well. Awesome. So Richard, that's the scores themselves.
Yeah, real quick, do you want to show how to sort by a column just to show that? Yeah. So right now we've got the absolute strength 1 month score. That's what this screen is sorted by. But you can click, once to sort it from high to low, another time to sort it from low to high. You can see Riot has been destroyed over the last month. That's why it's rated a 3 out of 100. VICR very similarly. So even if the 1 month it changes very fast. It's just taking into account that last month's action. So if you want to have screens that look for and really consider that last month, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was saying if you want to screen for short setups, this is another way, right? You could just say, show me, the worst stocks from a rating of 1 to 30. That's a bottom 30% of the market, right? So.
Yep.
I just wanted to showcase another way. You can always add them to the data panel. So I usually have, if you don't want the column way, I usually have the symbol column, and then you can add the 1, 3, or any of the data points that we discussed on the right side as well as you're scanning. So I agree that it will be much more convenient once we get these right in line here. So your eye remains on the chart and the analysis remains within the chart itself. And that's something, yes, we will be doing in the short term.
Cool.
Richard,
yeah.
You want to cover presets or take some questions?
We've covered a few questions here. Let's see if there's any more coming in here. Let's see. For Michael Hoots, are industry group scores calculated the same as RS, AS scores? Higher is stronger. Do you want to take that one?
The industry scores are actually the opposite. So you want your best industry score is going to be closer to 1 because that's the top industry group, and your worst industry score rank will be farther away from 1, and
Yep.
that's the difference. Yep. So the industries are actually scored the other way around.
Mm-hmm. And Will had a cool idea, the ability to kind of plot the RS score and kind of a moving average of that line. So yeah, we've been talking and planning about the ability to plot it as an indicator, the actually RS score, because that's different than the RS line. The RS line value is it's just a ratio, it's just a value, but the actual RS score or AS score that could be pretty useful. Seeing that progression, right? You can see how a stock develops. Oh, it just jumped its RS score quite a bit. That could be something that you'd want to see visually as an indicator. So that's a really good idea that we'll be thinking about how to implement.
There's a question on if there's a comparable score, not really the topic of today, but yes, there is. The Deepvue score is what we call it. It incorporates all other scores that we have, and that is the equivalent to the composite score.
Mm-hmm. Harry's asked, it would be nice to have a drop down right on the chart to switch between the RS timeframes. I'm not quite sure. So the line is simply a line. It doesn't really have a time frame associated with it. But when you switch the actual chart time frame, the relative strength line, it adjusts. So here we're on a weekly relative strength line. If you go back to a daily chart or monthly or whatever, it will show that same representation because it's a ratio. There's not a time frame associated with that. The RS new high before price 3 month, 1 month, that does have a time associated with it, but not the actual line itself. So hopefully that answers it. If you have a follow-up question, please let us know. Let's see.
Darren, this is going to be recorded. Yes.
Yep. Sweet. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, let's dive into the screens now, I think. Let's do it.
Yeah. So yeah, you could direct me in.
Yeah, sure. So back out here just to show everybody how to find the screens in general. Yeah. So in order to find a screen that you've created or select one of the presets, what you want to do is go over here, click that drop down menu. We've currently got the Deepvue Universe screen loaded here, but you can always navigate to either between your save screens or the screener presets up here. Then within the screener presets, we have a lot of them here for you. And first showing the one specifically about RS new high here. If you go to technical, we've got 1 month, new highs, 1 month, 3 months, 6 month. We've got a lot of options here for you. Do you want to go ahead and load it just to show, the data point? And if you edit the screen, click that, edit screen. You can see that we're just looking for RS new highs 1 month. And we've got, the type here, common stock and all that. Anything with the screen that you want to add?
No, I mean, these different screens, basically, we pre-built them for you. You could always take them and build duplicates. So these are not set in stone. So if you want to put more parameters, so right now we got 445 stocks that have a RS new high criteria. But if you want to go ahead and narrow that screen down based on average dollar volume, float, beta, you name it, you can add more criteria by clicking duplicate, and that will then move the screen over to, it's going to be your personal screen at that point, and then you can always customize it further. We have RS 1, 3, 6, 9, and 12 built in for relative strength new highs that we spoke about earlier in the webinar. And then we also have relative strength new high before price makes a new high. And that is also built in, and it's a very simple screen that we've built as a preset for you. Obviously, it shows 999 results. At the moment, it includes, again, our database includes warrants, ETFs, units. It's just a bigger database, and we haven't filtered for any of the the market types that we have over here. So you can always take this again, make it a custom custom screen for yourself, we've kind of built the preset just to have the basics for you on a 1, 3, 6, 9, and 12 month. And that's, you could directly scan for each of these and then, build your list accordingly. So something like, ACN, we're saying that relative strength line is making a new high before price makes a new high. So the 1 month high for price is somewhere over here at 323. And the relative strength line you could see over is making a new high because the stock is holding up so well. So that's a visual illustration. You scan for it in Deepvue. It gives you, ACN is a potential candidate. And now you can see that ACN is holding above its key moving averages. It's below its 1 month high while the relative strength is making a new 1 month high. And then you could do the same for 3 month, if the correction kind of stretches itself down, into 3 months, you can then come in and do that on a 3 month basis. You'll get different results. So something like ANF, the relative strength line remains at a high, right? While ANF is pulling in, mostly because, it was slightly negative on the day while the S&P was down more than 1%, right? So that adds a relative strength day to ANF, and its relative strength line is making a new high while the price is now below its 3 month high, which is 52.96. So,
yep. And let's show the screens from Mike Webster and also Oliver. So again, these are pre-built. We've got ones from, inspired by Mike Webster, Oliver Kell, Minervini, and we'll be adding some from Leif Serede, focus on high type flags. We've got some William O'Neill screens in there. So there's a lot of amazing screens that are, created by fund managers, top traders, US investing champions that you can use, make your own, duplicate them. But it's a great starting point that you can use as a foundation. So first here with Mike Webster, he's got the down days tell screen. So loading that up, opening that up, you can see the criteria he's looking for. Basically above the 200-day moving average, price versus the 50-day moving average greater than 1% below that. And he's got the daily closing range greater than 75%. So that's another really handy data point in Deepvue, the daily closing range that you can use to find relative strength, especially on a day like today where the market pulled back really hard. A stock that closed near its highs today had a strong daily closing range. That's definitely a stock you should keep an eye on here. So CORT, you can see, even though it was down, if you go back up to CORT,
yes.
Yep. So this one, even though it was a red day, look at where it closed in that range. Its daily closing range was very high. So that's forming the hammer candle, which is definitely significant on a day where the market's closed right near its lows. So anything you want to add about this screen in particular?
No, I think like a lot of these that we've taken from, Mike, Oliver, and we're always going to add more and more as we work on, with these folks on an individual basis over a span of, next couple of weeks and months. We'll always be adding more to this, especially from an investor's perspective. So I think, this is a really good screen. It just scans for strength in the market when there was no strength today on an aggregate basis. And it shows you stocks that were acting well. So RVMD closed up on the session. The relative strength line is making, basically a new high, while the S&P and the Qs finished, down more than 0.5% today. So again, this is another way, it takes into account DCR. Basically, it's doing, a calculation on the DCR, and that's another form of relative strength, right? So.
Yep. And if we load up Oliver's, it's similar, but a little bit different. Let's load up Oliver's scan here. So again, go to investors, down to strength on down day right there. Loading that one up. This is another view of relative strength that's really useful on a day like today. So this is actually pretty simple. And Oliver keeps it simple. This is simply looking for stocks that were up today, over $20 that are pretty liquid, over 500K in average volume. So, but again, if you go through these names, you'll see, that they're bucking the trend. I gotta always say bucking the trend. But you'll see that they were acting well today, while the overall market, if you look at the indexes, the NASDAQ, the SPY, they were down pretty big. So these are things that you can note on a day-to-day basis, build relative strength lists. And again, you're just trying to build a case. So when the correction ends, you've got that go-to list of stocks that have been showing strength consistently over the course of the correction. So, Ryan, do you want to go ahead and build a screen using the RS days to show them kind of how you've got your own screen with that. So yeah, let's go ahead and
Yeah.
dive right into that.
So RS days and how you can scan for those in Deepvue is basically if I click this, it's going to take me down to relative strength days, and then based on this drop down, I can then scan the markets, on from a 5-day all the way up to a 90-day. So if the correction stretches itself, and over the past month, we've been in some sort of weakness. So I can take the 20 or 25 and say, based on that, show me, we want to change this to a percentage. It's not the best implementation at the moment, but you could you could do the percentage. What I tend to do is 62.5%. So 12.5, 12 days out of 20 days were relative strength days, and then it kind of gives me that list. Now you could look at VRT. That one's been strong over the past couple of sessions. AAOI, that one's strengthening, even though the market's pulling back and breaking the 50-day. And some of these other ones too. You're always going to get, stocks that just go dormant or have been bought out. We're working on ways to kind of exclude these stocks as well from screens and give you that options for those. But that's again another screen. From a 5-day, you can scan for from 5 days all the way up to 90. So over the last 30 days, if you want to see stocks that exhibited the most relative strength, 20 out of the 30 days, you could do that right away. Another thing I like to do when I'm scanning is you could add it as a column as well. So if I type in relative strength days, it will show up as a column. So I could say, over the past 30 days, VRT has exhibited a relative strength 16 out of the 30. And we can express this as a percentage in the future as well. And then I also want to get it on the charts itself so that you could have, percentage of RS days over span of anywhere from 5 to 90 could visually show on the charts in future updates.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty much what we wanted to cover, and now we kind of want to transition a little bit towards future ideas and any ideas that you guys have when it comes to relative strength and ways that we can improve the Deepvue platform. So Ryan, do you want to first kind of touch on our thoughts around the anchored RS, because I think that's a really cool concept.
Yeah, so the way we're gonna, if you want to see the relative strength line compared, if we pull up the S&P, for example, and you want to see, the relative strength relative to this day and be the ratio from this particular day, or the score be from this particular day, that would be something that we want to implement in upcoming updates, where you would be able to anchor your RS line and would kind of draw and show you relatively how the stock is performing relative to that particular anchor that you put on it. Very similar to the anchor VWAP concept. It's just placing time as a variable to what you're doing in the markets, right? So you could anchor it from here, or you could say, show me stocks that are acting well relative to this date, or the relative strength line relative to this low, and that you could visualize on a per stock basis, and would be a good way for you to kind of see, which ones are acting well, which ones are not acting well relative to a high and low in the S&P, Qs, or any other major market. So.
Yeah, I think that'd be super cool. I think that'd be extremely useful when we're going through corrections just like this. And looking at intermediate highs and seeing what stocks have acted the best since those have been hit. So let us know your feedback in the chat. Is that something that you'd be interested in? I see Dean is a fan of that, so that's great. Yeah, I think now we'll just kind of expand it over to questions and try to get as much answer as possible. So there's a question not specifically on RS, but from RD. How far back is your data for the NASDAQ and NYSE? Right.
For the NASDAQ, we go back to 2003 and on a 1 minute time frame. So we have data back to 2003. Later in Q4, we will have data on the daily time frame going back 50 years.
Yep, great.
So right now we're at 20 years, 2021, right? Somewhere around that, and we'll go back to 50. So we'll add another 30 years.
Let's see here. What do the green dots show? So if we go back to the settings here, if you click that, the green dots basically show, and go to inputs.
Yep.
The green dots show relative strength line new high. So if that line is making a new high, there will basically be a green dot that shows up on the chart. If it's a pink dot, it signifies a relative strength line new high before the price has made that high. So those are useful indicators. Yep, no problem, Anna. Good question. Let's see
I
here.
do recall how David Ryan uses this. If you want to answer that question, anyone recall how David Ryan? So he looks at the slope. He looks at the slope of the RS line, and he's more concerned with the phase it's in. So is it trending upwards or is it trending downwards? He's not big into scores, which I feel is justified given the fact that a stock, can move down when you do a weighted score. That's on a 12-month basis. A stock can move up 1,000% and will always be top of the top, top 1% of the market in terms of performance for a very long time, even if it falls 50% after moving 1,500% to the upside. So he's not a big fan of those ratings. I think absolute strength kind of takes care of that, like the AS score takes care of that, because you can see on a 6-month basis, is this stock the top performing stock in the market that I should have in my portfolio or not? And that's why we've implemented the AS score. So he's more into the slope of the RS line than the scoring systems.
Yep, and then PR had an interesting question and idea. Any scan for recent earnings gappers, stocks that did not close the gap from last earnings report? So that'd be pretty specialized, but
I've
definitely interesting.
Yeah, no, I've heard of that a couple of times. And Tyler, if you want to please make note of that, we should get that into the pipeline. It should be relatively easy. We could just take the last earning dates and create a price percent change from earnings. So, yeah.
Let's see. Lauren says it would be useful to be able to scan for stocks that have RS above the RS moving average. So I guess are kind of
Yes,
in RS phase. Yeah.
yeah, so that's something I mentioned. So yes, we should definitely implement that as one of, the improvements that we make here. Yep.
Great. All right. If you have any last questions, this is the perfect time to let us know. Other than that, let's see. I'm dropping the link to Deepvue down below in the chat. If you're interested in joining us there, definitely recommend it. Ryan, any last closing things about relative strength or Deepvue that you'd like to emphasize?
No, any ideas when you're watching this video that you feel we should implement? We definitely want to hear from every one of you, right? I think relative strength days when we implement, them right into the indicator and the relative strength scores to show in the indicator, that's going to be the next step that we'll take in the next 3 to 6 weeks. And then the ability to kind of, anchor the relative strength line with respect to time, that will add a whole new dimension as to what you could do in the software. So,
Yep, perfect. There's a question about show the data panel real quick. So this is the data panel, which is fully customizable, and you're able to add any data point in our database to this, reorganize it, set up your own categories. You can set, earnings, sales growth data, company info. That's what I have a section related to that. So this is fully customizable, so you can really customize your entire dashboard. So good question from V there. Let's see. Thank you, NA. Really appreciate it. Glad to see the positive feedback. If you guys have any suggestions for topics of future webinars, we'd also like to hear that. So in the chat, let us know, a concept or a topic that you'd like us to focus on, similar to relative strength. If there's something specific that you'd like us to cover, we'd love to hear it. Let's see here. Great. I see a few things. I love the innovation and desire to improve the product. Always, that's really where we are focused on, is always adding improvements, always adding features, and listening to everybody, because you guys come up with some amazing ideas that I'm like, wow, I want that. I use that every day. And yeah, it's just great to kind of build this as a community. From Ryan, this platform is really great. Design is top notch. The only thing missing, apply their own indicators and strategies like TradingView. I would 100% perfect. Yeah, we're working on that. as well. So thank you for that feedback, Ryan. Appreciate it. Um, you want to touch on? There's some questions about the app. So I know that's a highly requested thing, Ryan.
Yeah, the app, we will start working on it the first week of next month, and it's going to take us by December. We'll have mobile apps for both iOS and Android. So it will be a miniature version of Deepvue. You'll be able to go to your watch list, see your screeners, right? Load a screener, flip through a whole bunch of charts very easily, maybe by swiping right or swiping up, similar to TikTok and stuff, to make it easier or make the user experience much more better and faster on those devices. Yes, so that is coming, and we will have our first version of it early December at the moment. So
Yeah, and pre-market screener and post-market screener. Do you want to touch on that data?
pre-market and
Yeah,
post-market is going to be added the week of September 18. We remain on pace. We're going to have 5 different market types. You could scan the pre-market only. When it is pre-market, you could combine the pre and the regular market to do calculations on that. You could have the regular market only, or you could have the post-market only. So we're going to have 5 different market types. You could, when, for example, when it's post-market, you could load up your earnings scanner or some, relative volume scanner, and you could see as stocks are, reporting earnings after hours, or they see a pickup in volume from a relative, perspective, you could see that real time within Deepvue. That will be the week of September 18th.
yeah, perfect. VS, do you have any data that's similar to the Wanda platform? If you want to take that one.
Which data? So we have more earning, we have quarterly estimates, we have annual estimates, we have revisions data that is equal to Wanda. I believe we will always add more financial data, news data, come up with a dashboard. That's part of the roadmap at the end of the year that we want to accomplish after we implement 2 things, which is pre-post market support, multi-chart view, which will be, you could just infinity scroll charts in a 4x4 layout, be full screen. That's coming out early September, the first week of September. But any other features that Wanda has, that's kind of a very, very broad
Yeah.
question. So,
And Wanda's thousands and thousands of dollars. We're bringing this all to you for the retail price. So perfect here. Let's see here if there's any other key questions. Let's see. Yep, journal. We're working on that as well. Let's see.
yes, the app will have the ability for you to annotate charts. Yes, it will be this trading module, but a miniature mobile version of it. Yes.
Cool. All right, Ryan, I think we can wrap it up there. Any last things that you want to close things out with?
No, I just want to emphasize the fact that if you guys have any ideas when you're watching this video or recording, whatever, wherever it may be, if you have ideas, make sure you comment, reach out to us, let us know. And we're excited because we want to implement, the relative strength might be, a very small part of your entire process, but we want to make it the easiest and the best part so that you could, scan for it in the markets, visualize it any which way you want. Any ideas around that, we're always open. So.
For sure. And we've also been doing interviews with top traders like Oliver, like Christian Kwalamagi, and incorporating, their dream features, which I think everybody will really enjoy. So it's great to get feedback, both positive and constructive, because that's what's going to make this platform, the best thing out there. We're already well on our way, and we're only going to get better. So thank you guys all for spending your time with us. Hello to everybody in the recording. Thanks for sticking until the end. And with that, we'll see you guys next week, and see you guys on Deepvue. And I've dropped the link one more time in the chat here. And with that, have a great rest of your evening. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.